Greetings, friends. I'm Susanna Meyer, the Executive Director for Empowered Aging, and welcome to another Empowered Aging Managers live stream. We get together periodically to discuss topics that we think you'll find interesting, talk about some things that we're seeing in our work, just bring us together to share and educate. This month is a little different because we're going to talk about a campaign that we've launched. But before we do that, let me give you just a brief overview in case you're not familiar with Empowered Aging. We are a nonprofit that serves 3 counties, Alameda, Solano, and Contra Costa. And our primary program is Ombudsman Services. And basically what that means is we protect the rights and the quality of life for residents living in long-term care in those 3 counties, whether they're older adults or adults with disabilities. In addition to that, we have an MSW internship program. And our interns go through some of our local universities and have the same training that our ombudsmen have and help out with doing that same work in the long-term care facilities. And we have a healthcare career pathway program, which has actually been noticed as a pilot program for the Master Plan for Aging by the governor. And this program brings people with addressable barriers to long-term career paths into an intensive CNA certification program and helps them to find a career path and with surrounding resources and services that will help them succeed through that. We also have, in our Solano County, we have an elder justice program, which really just addresses the problems that we're seeing for victims of crimes, victims of elder abuse in that county and living independently in their own homes. And we have friendly visiting and telephone reassurance in Solano County as well. And basically just to help with isolation for people who are living alone and maybe don't have family members or friends that are available to come by and check on them and engage them in conversation. So today we're going to talk about a campaign that we have, See Me, Hear Me. And this is a campaign that we launched in the beginning of June to recognize World Elder Abuse Awareness Month. And this is something that it's important to the work that we're doing. And we know that through some recent research, data shows that 1 in 10 older adults over the age of 60 has experienced abuse of some sort. And only 1 in 24 of those cases are actually reported to the authorities. So this is work that is very meaningful to us. There's some overlap in the work that we're doing. And so we were thinking about ways that we could bring attention to these issues and to the work that we're doing and help people to understand what resource we are. And this was a good thing for us to do with the paddles because the people that we're supporting, when we're supporting them, are at their most vulnerable. Sometimes they've been the victim of crime. They've been a part of something that they feel like they have no control over. They're feeling unseen and unheard and forgotten. And so our goal in this agency is to make sure that people are not forgotten as they age, and that they are represented and that they're cared for. And See Me, Hear Me is allowing us to hide identities of the people that they want to take part in the campaign, but still be able to tell stories. And this is all about just protecting that vulnerability and protecting someone's pride. And so through this campaign, we've been doing presentations, we've been doing interviews, we've been talking with residents and administrators and care providers at facilities. We've been talking to elected officials and had great response there. A lot of our partner agencies have taken part. People are taking photos with the paddle and then giving us a quote to share what those words mean. What does it mean to protect older adults and adults with disabilities? What does it mean to make sure people feel represented and not forgotten? And so we're getting together today to talk a little bit more about the campaign. Technically, at the end of June, we'll be through with the World Elder Abuse Awareness Month, but we're going to keep moving forward with this campaign because we found that it's a wonderful way to bring people into the work that we're doing and help them understand how they can support that work. Obviously, volunteers for us are key. Doing the work that we do, we're all stretched really thin. A lot of nonprofit staff are stretched really thin, but volunteers also go through that same training with ombudsmen, and with that training can do some of the same work in the counties that we serve. So we'll talk about how to learn more as we move on. And if you want to donate, of course, that's a wonderful thing too. You can help us out with some of the work that we're doing in the areas as well. Right now, within the 3 counties, we have nearly 500,000 older adults and adults with disabilities living in long-term care facilities. And so ever, or not living in, but as soon as someone moves into a long-term care facility, any one of those people, they're immediately eligible for our support. Our ombudsman staff are out there in these facilities making unannounced visits. We're state mandated to be able to protect the rights of people living there. And so we're doing that through interactions at the facilities, educational trainings with the facility staff. We're doing everything that we can to raise voices, protect people's quality of life, and of course, protect them against abuse and neglect. So we're going to start with talking a little bit with staff about what the campaign means to you, what you've heard as you've introduced it to people, any quotes that are meaning something to you. And we will start with Dodie. Dodie, if you could introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about your thoughts on the campaign.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susanna. My name is Dodie Zotai, she, her pronouns. I'm the director of the Healthcare Career Pathway here at Empowered Aging. And when I think about See Me, Hear Me campaign, for myself and kind of the multitude of identities that I have and the work that I've done throughout my career and really in my social justice kind of work in my life, See Me, Hear Me means to make visible and recognize those who are most marginalized. And in a lot of ways, it's advocating for our LGBTQIA plus older adults, those elders in our long-term care facilities, but just in general in aging. We know that folks who identify as LGBTQIA, when they're aging, they tend to be not partnered or not have children. And so that social isolation that already affects a lot of older adults, it impacts folks in the LGBTQIA plus community, sometimes compounds that. And so when we're talking about See Me, Hear Me, and looking at the ways that we create our spaces, have trainings for our staff, it's really, really important to understand those unique needs and understanding the issues that are facing LGBTQIA plus adults. There's unique challenges for them accessing medical care, discrimination that they face. And a lot of times folks kind of think of, and when you think of an LGBTQIA plus elder, there's usually like a picture, a single picture, but there's a huge diversity of folks. So in the US, there's about 1.1 million LGBTQIA plus older adults that are 65 and older. So that's a lot of folks that we're looking at. And then approximately 1 in 5 of those older adults are people of color. And a third of those individuals, unfortunately, are at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. And so what that means is that their access to economic security, being able to afford being in long-term care, some recent studies that have come out have shown an increase in folks over the age of 50 and especially over the age of 65 that are homeless. And of those, a lot of those individuals are disproportionately LGBTQIA plus folks, folks of color, folks with other mental health or other disabilities. And so we know in long-term care, unfortunately, that folks face discrimination and harassment in our care facilities. About 20%, 23% report verbal or physical harassment from other residents. And then 14% verbal and physical harassment from staff because of their identities. So it's related to real or perceived sexual orientation and or gender identity. And so the more marginalized someone might have or other identities that they have, those intersections, that just compounds the things that they face. What we do know, though, is that our LGBTQI plus elders are very resilient. They faced a lot. So they were at the helm of things like Stonewall and Compton riots and have really led the charge to change, right, culture and to build acceptance. And so when we're thinking about the work that we do, making sure that they're seen and that they're heard and that we create spaces that affirm them and let them know that we love them and support them is really, really important because they've done that work for the younger generations. So that's what I think of.
Thank you, Dodie. And I think you brought up a really important point too. I think a lot of times people assume that when someone moves into a long-term care facility, their needs are met. And for the most part, that's true. And I think a lot of the education that we're doing is around some of the things that like Dodie is talking about. If you're having residents who are discriminating against other residents, for example, that can be an education, that can be a teaching moment for us in the work that we're doing and the family counseling groups that we're doing, that kind of thing. So Thank you for bringing up those points. I think those are important to note. I think, again, we need to remind people that when someone moves into long-term care, their basic needs might be met, but they're still potentially going to face things like discrimination, isolation, depression, mental health issues, that kind of thing. Dondre,
Yeah.
on the campaign.
Hi, I'm Donjay Sanders. I am the Elder Justice Program Manager for Solano County. And what See Me, Hear Me, where that resonated with me was a principle that I always lived by, is that you don't sit while elders stand. And of course, that's a respecting if you're on a bus and you're sitting and you see an elderly person, you wouldn't let them stand while you sit. But I take that a step further when it comes to the unjust that they receive in society, is to not sit by and let them stand for themselves, let them fight by being overlooked, judged by their age, and mistreated. And in my program, the Elder Justice Program, we empower them. We give them resources to fight. We don't stand by, we don't sit by and let them fight alone. We see them, we hear them, we empower them. And that's what See Me, Hear Me means to me, to stand with our elders.
Thank you, Donjay. Kiev, your perspective as an ombudsman program manager is going to be a little bit different. Can you share that?
Yes, hi, my name is Kiev Harris. I'm the program manager for Empowered Aging Alameda County. And when I think of the See Me, Hear Me campaign, I like to take it for what it says. A lot of our elders, if you feel like you're not being seen, you can be heard. And if you're not being heard, you can be seen. And those two things together can be very powerful. So I'll share a brief story. So as we were spearheading this campaign, obviously we were going into facilities, and us as ombudsmen, we come into facilities with very minimal items. We usually have a notebook, a pen, and our keys. But this time I bombarded a facility and met with the administrator, and I had a bag full of paddles, full of documentation, which was a little alarming for them. They said, "What did we do? Are we in trouble?" And I said, "No." So as I proceeded to bring some of the items out of the bag, I showed them some of our paddles. And when I showed them the paddles, surprisingly enough, they were completely on board within every facility that I went to, because unfortunately, this is something that is unheard. A lot of our elders in Alameda County, and just in general, oftentimes they feel unseen or unheard. So as I proceeded to walk through the facility, I encountered this gentleman, and he had been in this particular facility for almost 5 years, and he resignated from New Jersey. He came out here as he served in the Marines and things like that, got married, had a family, a sailboat, things like that he shared. And so as I showed him the paddles, he instantly welled up with tears. And I said, "Well, did this trigger something for you?" And he didn't want to talk about it. And I said, "No problem." So the caveat to this story is, a few days later, we get a knock on the door here at our office. And us as ombudsman, we know it's very far in between that we actually get a visit from a resident, but we got one. And so as I proceeded to go to the door, it was this gentleman that I met in the facility who didn't want to talk. So he came in by himself. He drove himself down here, knocked on the door, and intruded our office. And he came with great spirits and things like that. And so he shared with all of us collectively as a team that obviously he's from New Jersey, and he also took part in being a comedian on the side before building his family and transitioning out here to California. And he said, so as he transitioned into a skilled nursing facility, he felt like his personality was starting to diminish. And him as a person, he wasn't being seen, nor was he being heard. And he was taken as a joke, although trying to make people laugh with jokes. So he wrote on a paddle, laughter is the key to the heart. And he explained that with laughter and a little, comedic comedy here and there has the ability to change everything. And so he said with him hearing us in a facility share this campaign really inspired him and triggered something inside of him that wanted him to speak out and be heard. And so he shared his story that, he had been feeling unseen and unheard, and that his personality, which was from a comic perspective, was looked down upon. And so he felt inspired to be himself, shed those jokes, bring laughter into the facility, because sometimes, as we know, with life changes like that, it's probably not your hopes or your desires to be in the nursing facility, but it's really about shifting the narrative and the perspective to make one feel happy with their new home, so to speak. So he definitely stood out. I thought that was a phenomenal story for a resident to come seek us out so that he can be seen and that he can be heard. So that's my spin on it.
Kiev, I can't even tell you how much I love that. I mean, he is exactly why we're doing this.
Absolutely. It felt good. It was very rewarding.
Ah,
Because usually we go out to do our due diligence, right? To say, hey, we're here to help you. And you contact us when you need us. And very few times they don't. And I can say this is a first, and maybe some of you all can contest that a resident, was able to seek us out and say, listen, I want to be seen and I want to be heard. And here's my story. So I thought it was
think
great
that's
to me.
incredible. We've got a really great collection of photos, like I said, of residents and community partners, nonprofit partners, and elected officials and state offices and all that. I remember when Kiev first shared that photo of that gentleman, and I thought, that's an interesting take, because he didn't want to hide behind the paddle, if you want to put it that way. He wanted to be fully seen and clearly fully heard. So I love hearing the backstory behind that, Kiev. Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, this really is, it's going to be up for interpretation. I think everyone that we speak with about this is feeling it a different way. It means something different to everyone. Christina, how about you?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Christina Farnham, Ombudsman Program Manager for Solano County. We have been collecting quotes and comments about what See Me, Hear Me means. And so I wanted to share a few of those with you from residents, from our board supervisors, just different people of what it means to them. So one says, my wife helps me feel seen and heard. She makes me feel needed, even after 56 years. She makes me feel good. That one it hits hard, being married for 56 years, that's amazing. And, I think to be able to just share that with everyone, it means a lot. One that I'm going to share from our board is, I joined the board of Empowered Aging with the hope and intention of making life better for those that are struggling through the aging process. It's hard to get old physically, emotionally, mentally, and financially. I am proud to be part of an organization supporting our aging population when they struggle to support themselves. To me, See Me, Hear Me means don't forget me when I'm old. Don't dismiss me. I'm still a person of value, and I deserve kindness and respect. And as ombudsmen, that's what we are here for. That's what we are fighting for. We are advocating for the residents in long-term care facilities to make sure that they are being heard and that they are being seen. It's hard living in a long-term care facility with multiple people. And so we want to make sure as ombudsmen that they are not being neglected or, that they live their life to the fullest.
Thank you. And that I'm really glad you chose the board president's quote. I think she put a lot of thought into that. That's Karen Davy Winter, our board president. And I appreciate that you shared that one. I think it kind of encompasses a lot of what we're feeling about it too. Tiffany, do you have some thoughts to share?
Hi, I'm Tiffany Hurd, Administrative Manager here at Empowered Aging. I'm not in the field, so, I don't have a resident story. But what I can say, See Me, Hear Me means to me, yesterday I had a meeting with an old friend, and we met, as we often do, and just to catch up. And during that meeting, this old friend shared news with me. My friend is of the aging population, and quite senior, actually. And this friend shared news with me about their impending issues with aging. And we joked and we laughed it off. This is a very light and jovial friend. And I had See Me, Hear Me paddle or two in my car, photo release. And I was just sharing with this old friend what's going on for the agency for which I'm working. And so in the midst of this friend sharing their story with me, I jokingly but seriously passed the paddle and I said, well, if you do have to go to a care facility, make sure you use this paddle. Make sure they see you. Make sure they hear you all the time. And, we laughed it off, we joked it off, but there was an air of seriousness to the light and jovial joke being made because, the most serious things are shared in a joking manner. And this person is actually afraid of aging and what's around the corner. So in that moment, I shared what we're working on. And I know that they appreciated it because they kept the paddle. And that's my story.
Thank you, Tiffany. And that's why Tiffany didn't have a paddle this morning. Carlene, what can you share?
Hi, I'm Carlina Chetta, Program Manager at Contra Costa County. I read two quotes. So Nelson Mandela said, "A society that does not value its older people denies its roots and endangers its future. Let us strive to enhance their capacity to support themselves for as long as possible, and when they cannot do so anymore, to care for them." I also came across a quote by Carson McCuller, who said, "The closest thing to being cared for is to care for someone else." When I think about the See Me, Hear Me campaign, I think about the residents we come across. Like, for example, the quote that Christina shared with the resident who said his wife helps him feel seen and heard even after 56 years of being married. I believe caring for our seniors is a huge responsibility, but also one of the greatest responsibilities that we have. As an ombudsman, it is important that our residents not only feel seen and heard, but also that they're well taken care of. And it fills our cup to know that their needs are being met.
Perfect. Thank you for that. It's interesting to me that everyone that we speak with has such a different perspective about what the words mean. And when I've shared this with other nonprofits that are doing similar work with people that are very vulnerable, they have said they would like to try and do something similar. It's hard for us to bring people into our work because the people we serve, and I'm going to say it again, when we serve them, are facing really significant challenges that they may not want to talk about. They may not want to be interviewed by a newspaper to help us raise funds. They may not want to be featured in our newsletter. So the See Me, Hear Me campaign is really all about protecting those identities, protecting that pride, but still being able to tell a story and bring the community into the work that we're doing. If you want to learn more about See Me, Hear Me, you can go to our website. We have a dedicated landing page, empoweredaging.org/See Me, Hear Me. On that page, you'll see our launch video where we show some of the people that took some photos for us. You'll hear a little bit more statistics around why we're doing this campaign. You will see Tiffany Hurd's email address if you'd like to request a paddle yourself and take part in the campaign. If you do want to do that and you email Tiffany, she can mail one to you, or you're welcome to come by one of our offices and pick them up as well. We do have a photo release form, and we have a paper overview that gives you a little bit more information about the campaign. And again, you can just email a photo to us and scan the photo release form and then email us your quote, and we're happy to include you in our campaign. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn, we are sharing regularly these posts about the quotes and the photos that we're collecting during the campaign and ongoing the work that we're doing in the community. We'd love to have your support that way as well. I think it's important to, again, remind you that we are always looking for volunteers in all 3 counties for our Elder Justice program, for our Ombudsman program, for our Friendly Visiting program. We are obviously looking for people that are willing to become one-time or monthly donors to help us do our work. We would like to engage with you in any way. Give us a call, reach out to us and let us know if you have a family member or a loved one living in a long-term care facility and you have questions about that or any concerns that their needs are not being met. That's what we're here for. So in closing, any more thoughts? Does anyone want to share anything else before we close out? Okay, let's raise our paddles. Let's make sure that the people that we are serving are seen and heard. And let's make sure we're doing that for each other as well. I mean, as we all age, we're all going to age. Let's make sure that we're respecting each other's needs and desires as well as we move forward. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you again in a few weeks, and we'll have another topic that hopefully will spark your interest. and look forward to engaging with you. Thanks so much. Bye.